everybody, we are Second Sight. I'm Anusha, this is Pushkar, and we are talking today with a very good friend of mine, Kalansh Gala. He's a theatre actor and a writer. And Kalansh, can you just introduce yourself?
So, hi everybody, I'm Kalansh and I'm so happy that Second Sight is here with me and we're going to have a lovely conversation today. So, tune in. Yeah.
So, my first question to you, we're gonna be talking about a lot of things, but mainly about the intersection of art and identity. And my first question to you would be, because the subject matter is this, what do you identify as?
So, I identify as gay, and yeah, I mean that's about it. Like there's been questions of am I bisexual, am I not, but I think I'm gay. Yeah.
Great, so amazing.
Continuing from what your answer was to the last question, do you think that there's such a thing as queer art?
Art, because, so okay, this is what I believe, okay, that art is not having sex with other art of the same gender. So, or like even, so art is not sexually active. So how can we say that art has any kind of sexual identity, right? The people have sexual identities, or the people have different kinds of sexualities. So personally, I would say no, I don't think there's anything called queer art. It's art which happens to be done or performed or enacted by queer people.
Mm-hmm. But also, would you then say, like, what is the relationship of your sexuality with your art? Does it like have like a point where it mingles? Does it inform your art, or whether, as in, does it or should it? Like.
So okay, let me reverse this question to you. I mean, and to you as well. Like, as sexually active people, do we not inform our art and our practice or our anything that we're expressing, the way that we are performing or whatever that it is that we're doing, right? It's always going to be a back and forth.
For sure.
So I'm going to live off my experiences and I'm going to express my own experiences. So yes, I do rely on my sexuality to say that this is what I have been going through, this is part of my life and this is part of my art in that sense. And like even if we look at artists that I admire, like Cher and Madonna or Lady Gaga, there's been such women's sexuality, right? So we don't call them as women art. Or they're not saying that, oh, these are artists who are depending on their femininity.
But I would say though that oftentimes people are labeled as such. Like even when it comes to like you're a woman actor or you're a woman engineer or whatever. Like we have these describers which come before, right? As much as we don't want them.
Yeah.
So that leads me to the next question, which is that how do you feel about people using these labels often and using it, as like the first describer before your professional title, like this is the queer actor. So what do you feel about that?
See, to me it's a double-edged sword, right? There's a good side to it because what it does is it creates a niche for me personally. So like I become a more profitable, a more bankable person, and I have a ready audience that's always going to come and support me no matter what I do because I'm queer. And I have an audience that's always going to put in more money into me. But also it's not an entire definition of who I am or what my art is, because I'm not going to write or I'm not going to perform plays where I'm performing a queer person all the time. I do different things and all of us do. That's part of experimenting. So
yeah, that makes absolute sense for sure. Cool.
So the art world has always been very liberated. It has been more accepting. It has always had niches and spaces for different kinds of art forms, and that's the beauty of it, right?
True.
That everyone's allowed to practice art and everyone's allowed to do whatever they like. It's experimental. And in terms of our society, where we're at, I think obviously India isn't where the rest of the world is, or India isn't where Europe or some of the Western countries are. India is possibly a little better than some other countries. I'm not going to get into those details.
You know what those countries are.
But yeah, and I'm not saying that it's an ideal situation, but I'm saying that art has that responsibility of informing and taking it towards
Right, definitely.
that ideal situation. And because if nobody's doing that, we're only getting art which is constantly repetitive and constantly reinforcing conservative ideas of what is not acceptable.
Yeah. Talking about conflict, we cannot ignore the fact that people from the queer community, especially in India, do face discrimination and all sorts of very disgusting behavior. So, it's quite a personal question to ask, but is there something that has happened that is disturbing or discriminatory in your experiences, which you felt like you learned a lot from, or which is something the queer community at large could learn from?
So again, going back to the earlier question about being bankable,
Yes.
because I'm queer and I look a certain way, that what happens is that there is discrimination in finding opportunities, right? It's always going to be like, oh, you look like the way that you do, so you're not going to be given the opportunities that
Correct.
any other person might be given. Or, this guy might be more suited because he looks different, etc. So obviously there's discrimination in terms of commercial and economics of sustaining art, but also there have been a lot of discrimination and sexually predatory behavior. But I think what happens is that I wouldn't say most, but a lot of people, if they're able to channel that into their art, then it becomes a healthier way to deal with
Right.
what they have been
Right.
through, right?
Right.
Because eventually art is about expressing what you've been through and what you've gone over. So yeah, and I have personally also written down and written stories about a lot of the work that I have been through, or sometimes things that are not necessarily very comfortable or very open to talk about, or so yeah, those are things that have informed my art for sure. And so I see more of the positivity, but I also believe that discrimination works at different levels. There's discrimination at large, which is in terms of economics or society. There's also discrimination personally, that you are so and so and I am so and so, and so there's
Correct.
this constant differentiation.
Right. Yeah. So how do you feel about straight people making, because I won't call it queer art, but making art with representing the queer community?
I think that's the step in the right direction, and also because art always has space for more. It's not going to tell you that this is the limit and you can't cross this limit. That's the point. Art has no boundaries, right? So it's going to allow you to experiment in every different way. It doesn't matter whether you're straight, whether you're queer, whether you're however you identify yourself as. Or I feel like that's what it's about, right? Like just helping each other, supporting each other, and making art together. Or even if it's not together, just making art because that's what we're supposed to do and that's what is our responsibility.
But then, sorry to before we conclude, is that there is also this responsibility that to the artist to make sure that the narrative is still not taking the spotlight away from the things that matter. And because there are, I'm not going to name anybody, but there are a lot of other artists, maybe in India, maybe abroad, who will make it about instead of making it about the community or talking about the issues at hand, they will make it about themselves, and it sort of becomes a little bit more of like a savior complex issue where they're like, oh, look at me, and I am the one who's putting light on these issues, and I'm the one saving. So that responsibility, so there is a very fine line with which one does operate.
So I mean, of course, as an artist, if we're going to ever look at making art, if our intention is to become, or is to draw profits from it, it's not going to be, I personally feel it's not going to be a valid or expression at all. And I don't feel like, of course we're all trying to sustain ourselves, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about if that is the intention behind creating the art or whatever it is that we're doing, it's not going to have benefits in either way. But of course, when the intention is to say that, okay, recognizing you, recognizing me, recognizing that we both live together, we are in a world together, and just making something together is important, and that's the point of art, right? Like reflecting society, expressing what you've been through and what you understand of it, and whatever, even if that's limited, or even if that's not going to be something that others agree with, it's still valid, because your intention is what counts when you're making art. It's not.
Alright, so before we conclude, tell us about some of the projects that you're working on right now. What is going to be happening in the near future for you?
And he was great, by the way. Please do check it out.
It's called so the play you was just called Ep01. I've done a few other plays, and a few of my friends and I are going to convert a script that I've written into a play as well.
That is exciting.
So it's something that's in the pipelines, and it's very temperamental, and it's just going to go with how things turn out.
So that's amazing.
Awesome. So that was Kalansh Gala,
Thank
and we are Second Sight. My name is Anusha. This is Pushkar. And yeah, see us in the next episode, and I hope you hang around. I hope you enjoy this, so please comment, give us suggestions. We'd love to know if there's any questions you want to ask, and spread the word.
And thank you so much for having us. Thank you. See you guys. Bye bye.